The sirens were screaming through the night when I first met him. The air smelled like smoke and fear, and in the middle of that chaos he stood, calm, strong, unshaken. His name was Daniel, and from the very first moment I saw him, I knew he was trouble. The kind that burns quietly. The kind that leaves scars you don't see. I was the new guy at the station, still trying to prove I belonged. He was the veteran everyone respected, confident, broad-shouldered, always the first to rush into the flames and the last to walk out. But what no one knew was that behind his steady eyes there was a storm. And somehow I was about to walk right into it. That night, when the fire raged and the city fell silent, something happened between us. Something no rule, no uniform, no chain of command could explain. And from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same. Before we begin, ask yourself this. What would you do if the person who saved your life also stole your heart? Stay until the end of this story, because what started as a rescue became something far more dangerous. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because what you're about to hear is a story that will test the limits of loyalty, desire, and the fire we all carry inside. The first night I met Daniel still feels like it's branded into my skin. The kind of memory that won't wash away, no matter how many showers you take after a shift. It was my first week at Station 47, and I was doing what every rookie does, trying not to screw up. The alarm went off at 11:42 p.m., a warehouse fire on the industrial side of town. By the time I grabbed my gear and jumped into the truck, the air was already thick with adrenaline. Daniel sat across from me, calm and unreadable. His helmet rested on his knee, and the faint orange light from the truck's cabin danced across his face. There was something about him, not just the build, though anyone could see the strength in his shoulders and the way his uniform fit perfectly. It was the silence, the confidence of a man who'd already faced 100 fires and wasn't afraid of the next one. You ever been in a real one? He asked suddenly. Not like this, I admitted. Nothing this big. He gave a small nod. Stay close to me. Don't try to be a hero. The truck came to a screeching stop, and before I could answer, the door slammed open, and the night swallowed us. The air was alive with smoke, sparks, and the metallic scent of burning steel. I could feel the heat hit my face even through the mask. Daniel moved ahead, every motion precise, practiced. I followed his lead just like he told me. Inside, the world was chaos. The fire roared like a living thing, crawling up walls and swallowing everything it touched. My heart hammered against my chest, but Daniel's voice came through the radio, steady as ever. Watch your footing. Stay left. Copy. I moved when he moved, turned when he turned. For a moment it felt like we were connected, two bodies moving through the same rhythm, trusting only the space between us. Then out of nowhere, part of the ceiling cracked and came crashing down. Reed, move. Daniel shouted. I froze for half a second, long enough for the world to tilt. He lunged forward, slammed into me, and pushed me to the ground. The debris hit where I'd been standing, sending a shock of dust and flame into the air. We rolled, helmets clashing, his arms braced around me as the noise died down. For a moment all I could hear was the sound of our breathing, sharp, uneven. You okay? He asked, voice low, right next to my ear. Yeah, I said, though I could barely speak. You just saved my life, he didn't answer. Just looked at me through the mask, eyes intense, unreadable. The light from the flames flickered across his faceplate, and in that surreal moment I forgot where we were. When we finally made it out, the cool night air hit me like a wave. I ripped off my helmet, gasping, and Daniel pulled his off too. His hair was damp with sweat, sticking to his forehead. For the first time he smiled, small but real. Not bad for a rookie, he said. I laughed, shaking my head. Not bad for a guy who almost got crushed. Hey, he said, stepping closer. Almost doesn't count. His hand came down on my shoulder, firm, grounding, but it lingered for a second too long. Maybe it was the rush of adrenaline, maybe the heat still in my veins, but something passed between us right then. Something that made my stomach tighten in ways I didn't expect. Back at the station, after the gear was cleaned and the reports filed, The others went to bed. I stayed behind, sitting on the back steps with a mug of burnt coffee, staring at the empty lot outside. The smell of smoke still clung to me. Daniel appeared in the doorway holding 2 beers. "You looked like you needed one," he said, tossing me a can. "Thanks," I said, catching it. "You always this calm after a fire?" He shrugged, sitting beside me. "You learn to be. Panic gets you killed." We drank in silence for a while. The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums. I could feel the warmth of him next to me, his arm brushing mine every now and then. "I thought you were done for in there," he said finally. "Yeah, me too." "Don't let that happen again." His voice was soft now. Not commanding, almost protective. "I'll try," I said, smiling a little. "But if it does, you'll be there, right?" He looked at me, his eyes catching the light from the street lamp. "Always?" he said. Something about the way he said it made it sound like more than just a promise between partners. It sounded like a confession. Later, in the bunk room, I lay awake long after everyone else was asleep. The moonlight slipped through the blinds, and across the room I could see Daniel's outline, broad shoulders, steady breath. I turned on my side, trying not to think about the way his hand had felt on me, the way his voice lingered in my head, but no matter how much I tried, I couldn't stop replaying that moment. The crash, the heat, the way he said my name. That was the night I realized the fire we'd fought wasn't the only one burning, and this one, I wasn't sure either of us could control. The days after that fire felt strangely quiet. The station had returned to its normal rhythm. Drills, laughter, paperwork, and the occasional siren slicing through the calm. But beneath it all there was something unspoken. Something between Daniel and me that neither of us dared to name. Every time he walked by, my body reacted before my mind could stop it. The sound of his boots, the scent of smoke and soap that lingered on him. Everything about Daniel carried a kind of gravity that pulled me in. And no matter how hard I tried to act normal, I could feel his eyes on me too. One morning during inspection, he caught me staring. I'd been watching the way his shirt stretched across his back as he bent over the engine compartment. He turned suddenly, wiping his hands on a rag, and gave me that half-smile again, the one that made my stomach tighten. "Something on your mind, rookie?" he asked, voice low enough that no one else could hear. I swallowed hard. "Just learning the ropes," he smirked. "You'll get there. You're already better than you think." It was meant to be encouragement, but it landed somewhere deeper. I nodded, pretending to focus on the engine, but when he brushed past me, close enough for his arm to graze mine, it felt like a spark had jumped from his skin to mine. That night, another call came in. Apartment fire, 3rd floor, heavy smoke. The city was a blur of red lights and sirens as we raced through the streets. Daniel drove, calm as ever, his jaw set, his eyes locked ahead. "You good?" he asked without looking at me. "Yeah," I said. "Just trying not to mess up." He shot me a quick glance. "You won't, not with me there. I don't know why, but those words hit harder than they should have. When we arrived, the scene was chaos. Families crying outside, smoke pouring from shattered windows. Daniel took charge immediately, barking orders with the authority everyone respected. I followed his lead up the stairs, my lungs burning from the heat and smoke. Inside the apartment, visibility was zero. We moved fast, clearing rooms, searching for anyone trapped. Then I heard it, a faint cough followed by a weak cry for help. I called out, and Daniel was already moving toward the sound. We found a little boy under a collapsed beam, barely conscious. "Get him out," Daniel ordered, lifting debris with one arm while I pulled the kid free. We passed him down to another firefighter. Then the ceiling above us groaned, the sound every firefighter dreads. "Move, Reed." Daniel shouted. We ran, the hallway behind us exploding in flame. I tripped, hitting the ground hard, and Daniel spun around, grabbing me by the arm. His grip was iron. He pulled me to my feet and pushed me through the door, both of us tumbling into the hallway as part of the roof gave way. Outside, the crowd cheered as we emerged. I coughed, gasping for air, and Daniel ripped off his mask. His face was streaked with soot, sweat dripping down his temples. He looked at me, and for a second, neither of us said a word. Then he stepped closer, his hand on the back of my neck. "You okay?" he asked, voice trembling just enough to betray what he felt. "I'm fine," I managed, though my heart was still racing. "You scared the hell out of me," he said quietly. "You can't freeze like that." "I didn't," I started, but he cut me off. "You did," he said, his tone softer now. "But it's okay. You're here. That's what matters." His thumb brushed my jaw, just for a second, just enough. And then he stepped back, like he realized what he'd done. Back at the station, the others celebrated with tired laughter and greasy pizza. But Daniel didn't join in. He sat outside on the back steps, staring into the dark. I hesitated before going to him. "Hey," I said. "You okay?" He looked up, the glow from his cigarette lighting his face in flashes of orange. "Yeah, just thinking." "About the kid?" He nodded slowly. "About everything." I sat next to him. The air was cold, but the space between us felt warm, dangerous, almost electric. "You saved me again," I said quietly. He exhaled smoke, eyes fixed on the ground. "That's my job." "Yeah, but it's more than that, isn't it?" He looked at me then, really looked. The kind of look that sees right through every defense you've built. "You shouldn't say things like that," he said, but his voice wasn't angry. It was tired, conflicted. "Why not?" I asked. "Because," he said, and then stopped, rubbing a hand over his face. "Because I can't stop thinking about you, and I don't know what the hell to do with that." My chest tightened. The world around us disappeared, the laughter from inside, the hum of the city, gone. There was only his voice, low and unsteady, and the space between us closing inch by inch. "Daniel," I whispered. He leaned forward, close enough that I could see every flicker of emotion in his eyes. "Tell me to stop," he said. But I didn't, and when he kissed me, fierce, desperate, like he'd been holding it back for years, I didn't stop him either. The world fell away. The only thing that mattered was the heat of his hands, the weight of his body, the truth we could no longer hide. When he finally pulled back, his forehead pressed to mine, his breath was ragged. "We can't," he said again. "I know," I replied. "But we already did." He closed his eyes, like he was trying to memorize the feeling before it vanished. Then God help us both, because in that moment I knew something had changed forever, and I also knew the fire between us had just begun. The days that followed felt heavier, quieter. Nothing between Daniel and me was the same, and yet to everyone else at Station 47, everything looked exactly as it always had. We still drilled together. We still laughed during coffee breaks. We still worked side by side during emergencies. But when no one was looking, there were glances that lingered too long, words that carried double meanings, and moments where silence said more than we ever dared to speak. At night, when the city slept, I caught myself replaying it. That kiss outside the station, the one that set everything on fire inside me. I'd close my eyes and feel his hand gripping the back of my neck, the taste of smoke still on our lips, the unspoken fear of being caught. Because we both knew what this was, forbidden, dangerous, and yet it didn't stop either of us from wanting it again. The station was our world, all noise and routine, filled with people who trusted each other with their lives. But trust in a place like that could turn into suspicion fast. The line between brothers and something more was one we weren't supposed to cross. One morning, during gear check, I felt his eyes on me again. Daniel was across the bay, talking to Captain Morris, but every few seconds, his gaze would flick back in my direction. He caught me looking once, and a ghost of a smile touched his face before he turned away. It was a dangerous smile, the kind that reminded me how much he was risking, how much we both were. Later, after lunch, he found me alone by the lockers. The others were out back loading the truck. He closed the door behind him quietly. "Reed," he said softly. "We need to talk." My heart jumped. "About the fire reports?" I joked, trying to play it cool. He shook his head, stepping closer. "About us." His voice was low, steady, that same calm tone he used before walking into burning buildings. But this wasn't about flames or smoke. It was about everything that could destroy us in a different way. "I've been trying to stop thinking about that night," he said. "But I can't." "Neither can I admitted. "But we didn't do anything wrong." His eyes locked on mine. "Didn't we?" For a second I thought he was angry. But then I saw the fear in his face, not fear of me or what happened, but of what it meant. He took a slow breath. "You're new here. You've got a future in this job. I can't be the reason you lose it." I stepped closer. "You're not. You saved me twice. You make me better at this." He let out a bitter laugh. "Better? I can barely think straight when you're near me." Before I could respond, the alarm went off. The sound ripped through the air, sharp and urgent. "Structure fire downtown. Possible entrapment." The dispatcher's voice echoed through the speakers. Daniel's jaw tightened. "We'll finish this later," he said, grabbing his helmet. We rode in silence, the tension almost unbearable. The sirens screamed above us, but inside the truck there was only the sound of our breathing and the words we hadn't said. When we arrived, smoke was already billowing out of a small office building. People stood outside, coughing, crying. Daniel took command immediately, barking orders. I followed his lead, forcing my focus back where it needed to be. We moved through the structure, clearing one floor after another. The smoke was thick, stinging my eyes, making it hard to see. Then I heard it, a faint cry coming from the stairwell. "Over here!" I shouted, running toward it. Daniel was right behind me. We found a woman trapped beneath a fallen beam. The heat was unbearable, and every second counted. Daniel grabbed one end, I the other. Together we lifted, muscles straining, lungs burning, until she was free. He helped her up, guiding her toward the exit. But before we could follow, another explosion echoed from above. A shower of debris rained down, and part of the ceiling collapsed. "Daniel!" I screamed, but the smoke swallowed everything. I pushed forward, coughing, searching. Then I saw him, pinned under a metal support beam, one leg trapped. He was still conscious, but barely. "Reed, get out!" he shouted through the mask. "Not a chance," I said, rushing to him. The fire was closing in. My hands burned as I grabbed the beam, trying to lift it. It wouldn't budge. He was losing air fast. "Go!" he shouted again, struggling to move. "That's an order!" "Forget orders," I said through gritted teeth. "I'm not leaving you." He looked up at me, and in that split second something changed in his expression. Fear, frustration, and something else. Something raw. He reached up, his gloved hand gripping the side of my face. "You idiot," he said, voice cracking. "If you die here, then I die with you," I interrupted. The beam shifted, just enough. I used every ounce of strength I had left and pushed. It finally gave way, crashing to the side. I grabbed him, pulling him out, just as the flames exploded through the hallway. We stumbled out into the night, both collapsing onto the pavement. Paramedics swarmed around us, but I couldn't hear them. I was focused only on Daniel, coughing, eyes open, alive. "See?" I said, my voice shaking. "Told you I wasn't leaving." He tried to speak, but only managed a faint laugh. "You're insane," he said between breaths. "But damn it, you saved me," I smiled, tears burning behind my eyes. "Guess that makes us even." But the look in his eyes told me this wasn't over. Something deeper had been set in motion, something neither of us could undo. And deep down, I knew the next fire wouldn't come from flames. It would come from what we felt, and the fact that someone else might already suspect it. After that night, everything changed. The rescue made the news. Photos of Daniel being carried out on a stretcher, soot streaked across his face, me kneeling beside him, refusing to leave. To everyone else, it was a story of bravery. To us, it was something else entirely, a moment that almost cost us everything and still might. The next morning, the station buzzed with praise. Captain Morris clapped me on the back. "Good work out there, Reed. You saved his life." I tried to smile, just did what anyone would. But Daniel wasn't anyone, and that was the problem. He was back on light duty, limping slightly, his leg wrapped. The others joked with him, but his eyes always found mine, a glance here, a nod there. Small things that no one else seemed to notice. Except one. Ryan, another firefighter from our crew, sharp, observant, and the kind of man who could read a room better than anyone. He was the first to look between us with that questioning stare. By midweek, the unease in my gut was impossible to ignore. Daniel avoided me when others were around. At lunch, he sat at another table. During training, his tone was clipped, professional, almost cold. I knew what he was doing, trying to protect us both. But it hurt more than I expected. That night I found him in the gym alone. Sweat glistened on his skin as he worked the punching bag, each strike harder than the last. "Daniel," I said, closing the door behind me. He didn't look up. "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," I shot back. "You're supposed to be resting." He stopped mid-punch, breathing heavy. "I can't rest." "Because of me?" I asked quietly. His eyes met mine. "Because of this," he said, gesturing between us. "It's getting too close. People are starting to talk." I stepped closer. "Let them." They don't know anything," he shook his head. "That's not how it works. One rumor is enough to end my career." "Yours too," I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. He was right. In our line of work, whispers could burn faster than any fire. Still, standing there, the smell of sweat and iron in the air, the sound of his heartbeat almost audible, I couldn't walk away. "I can't just pretend it didn't happen," I said. "I don't want to." He looked at me for a long time before saying, "Then you'll get hurt." "I already am." That was the last thing I said before he closed the distance between us. His hand caught the back of my neck, and the space between us vanished. The kiss was rough, desperate, not like before. This one carried anger, fear, and need all tangled together. When he pulled back, his voice broke. "You have no idea what you're getting into." I touched his face, fingers brushing the faint scar along his jaw. "Then show me." But before he could answer, the door swung open. Ryan stood there, frozen. None of us spoke for a second that felt like an eternity. His eyes went from Daniel's hand on my arm to my flushed face. Then he turned and walked out. Daniel cursed under his breath. "Damn it!" I ran after him. "Ryan, wait!" He spun around in the hallway, eyes wide. I don't want to hear it." "It's not what it looks like," I said automatically, though it was exactly what it looked like. "Don't lie to me, Reed. I've seen the way you two look at each other. You think nobody noticed? You're risking everything." "Ryan, please," I said, lowering my voice. "Just don't tell anyone." He hesitated. "You think I want to ruin you?" "I don't, but if someone else saw what I saw..." He shook his head. "You're done. Both of you." Daniel appeared behind me, his expression unreadable. "I'll handle this." Ryan looked at him with disbelief. "You can't handle this, Daniel. You broke every rule we've got. You put the whole team in a position none of us asked for. Then blame me," Daniel said firmly. "Not him." Ryan stared for a long moment before finally walking away. "I didn't see anything," he muttered. "But you'd better pray no one else does." The silence that followed was unbearable. Daniel leaned against the wall, his hand running through his hair. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," he said. "You think I regret it?" I asked. "Because I don't." He looked at me, eyes full of conflict. "You should." That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the dorm, the hum of the air vent, the rustle of sheets, felt amplified. I kept replaying Ryan's expression in my mind. Disbelief, disappointment, maybe pity. The next morning, the captain called us both into his office. My stomach dropped the moment I saw the look on his face. "Morris," Daniel said cautiously. "Something wrong?" The captain leaned forward. "Someone came to me last night. Said there's tension between you two." "Personal tension?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "We're fine, sir. Are you?" Morris asked, looking between us. "Because I can't have drama here. Not in my station. Not when lives depend on trust." My mouth went dry. I opened it to speak, but Daniel cut in. "It's my fault. I've been hard on him. Pushing him too much. It ends now." The captain studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Good. Keep it that way." When we left the office, Daniel's shoulders slumped with relief, but I could see in his eyes that something inside him had cracked. We didn't talk for the rest of the day. We didn't eat together. We didn't even make eye contact. But as the sun set over the city, I saw him outside by the trucks, staring at the horizon, lost in thought. I went to him. "We can't keep doing this," I said. He nodded. "I know," but when he turned to face me, his voice broke. "And yet I don't know how to stop." In the fading light, his eyes looked almost broken. I wanted to tell him it would be okay, that we'd find a way. But deep down, I knew the truth. We were already standing on borrowed time, and sooner or later, something, or someone, was going to make sure it ran out. The rumor spread faster than smoke through an open door. By the end of the week, something in the air at Station 47 had changed. Conversations stopped when I walked in. Laughter turned into whispers, and every time I caught someone's gaze, I could tell they knew. Daniel tried to pretend everything was normal. He moved through his routines with that same calm precision, barking orders, keeping his distance. But his eyes gave him away. Every glance was a silent warning. Don't react. Don't draw attention. The walls felt smaller every day. Meals in the mess hall became unbearable. Even small things, brushing past him during drills, the sound of his voice over the radio, made my chest tighten with both longing and fear. Then one morning, it happened. Captain Morris called me into his office. He didn't waste time. "Reed, I'm going to ask you something, and I need the truth." I nodded, my stomach twisting. "There's talk around the station," he said slowly. "About you and Daniel." The silence that followed was suffocating. "What kind of talk?" I asked carefully. "That you're involved," he said. "Personally," my heart pounded. "Sir, that's not—" He raised a hand. "I'm not here to judge anyone's private life. But if that rumor is true, it's a problem. You know the policy. That word hit harder than it should have. The department didn't officially ban relationships, but two people on the same team, especially one subordinate to the other, was a career killer." I hesitated too long. "And that was all he needed, I see," Morris said quietly. "I'll handle this carefully. For both your sakes." I left his office numb. Daniel was outside by the trucks, tightening a hose connection. When he saw my face, his expression darkened. "He knows," I said. He didn't even ask who. He just stared down at the pavement. "Of course he does. What are we going to do?" I asked. He shook his head.
"I'll take the hit."
"I'll say I pushed too hard, that I made you uncomfortable." "No," I said sharply. "You're not taking the blame for something we both chose." He looked up, his voice low but fierce. "You don't understand what this means, Reed. I've been here 15 years. This station is my life. But I'm not letting you fall alone." The radio crackled suddenly. "All units, multiple alarms. Warehouse fire on 9th Street. Heavy flames reported. Possible entrapments." Daniel grabbed his helmet. "We'll talk later." But we never got that chance. When we arrived, the scene was chaos. A wall of orange and black rising into the night sky. The warehouse looked like it had been burning for hours. Windows shattered from the heat. Explosions echoed from inside. "Reed, you're with me!" Daniel shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. We moved fast, breaching a side door and heading into the inferno. The air was thick with smoke. Visibility almost zero. We found two workers trapped in an office corner, coughing and disoriented. Daniel led them out while I searched the remaining rooms. The flames clawed at the walls, eating everything they touched. I heard the ceiling groan above me. Then it happened. The floor collapsed. I fell just a few feet, but hard enough to knock the air from my lungs. Pain shot up my leg. My radio flew from my belt, skidding out of reach. "Reed!" Daniel's voice echoed from above. "Where are you?" "Down here," I shouted, coughing. "Floor gave out." "Stay put," he ordered. "I'm coming for you." "Daniel, don't—" But it was too late. He dropped through the gap, landing beside me. Smoke filled the room. The exit was blocked by debris. We both knew what that meant. "Can't get out this way," he said, already scanning the walls for another route. "Back corner," I said, pointing toward a window half covered in flame. He kicked through it, letting in a burst of cold night air. "Go!" he shouted. "You first," I said. "Not a chance," he growled. We argued for seconds we didn't have. Then part of the roof cracked above us. I shoved him toward the window. "Go, damn it!" He turned back, eyes wide. "I'm not leaving you again!" And then the roof gave way. I remember the roar, the blinding flash of heat, and then nothing. When I opened my eyes, I was outside. The sky was full of sirens and shouts. I was lying on the ground, coughing, covered in soot. Paramedics crowded around. "Where's Daniel?" I asked. No one answered. I sat up, ignoring the pain in my leg. My gaze found the wreckage, twisted metal, flames still flickering. Then I saw them pulling someone out. Daniel. He wasn't moving. I stumbled toward him, hands shaking. Paramedics tried to block me, but I pushed through. His gear was half burned, his face covered in ash. I fell to my knees beside him. Daniel," I whispered. "Hey, open your eyes." No response. I grabbed his hand, the same hand that had pulled me out of so many fires before. It was still warm. I pressed it against my chest. "You don't get to leave me, you hear? Not after everything." A medic placed a hand on my shoulder. "We're doing everything we can." But I could see it in their faces. The sirens faded into a dull hum. The world blurred around me. I didn't cry, not yet. The tears came later, when the station was silent, his locker still open, his gear untouched. Captain Morris tried to comfort me, said Daniel died a hero. But that wasn't what broke me. What broke me was knowing no one would ever know the truth, that we had loved each other in the quiet spaces between duty and danger. That our story ended not with confession, but with silence. I kept his dog tags. Worn metal, faintly scratched. Sometimes when the night is too quiet, I still hear his voice. Calm, steady, teasing. "You're already better than you think." And maybe he was right. Maybe being brave isn't about running into flames. Maybe it's about daring to love someone you were never supposed to, even if it burns you in the end.